But for now, let us turn to Hong Kong, because many people were expecting the 11th straight weekend of pro-democracy demonstrations to lead to violent confrontations with police. But it didn't turn out to be that way. Instead, hundreds of thousands of protesters walked downtown streets in the pouring rain, calling for democratic reforms in the former British colony. They have been demanding the resignation of the Beijing-appointed leader of the territory, and they also want an investigation into police violence during previous demonstrations. Organizers say there were 1.7 million people in the streets today. Police say the number was much smaller. Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Gloria Fung. She is the president of Canada-Hong Kong Link. She is a pro-democracy activist and joins us right now in Toronto. So, Gloria, thank you for joining us today. I want to begin with the number that we just quoted there. Organizers are saying that 1.7 million people turned out in Hong Kong today on this 11th weekend of protests. What does that say to you about the movement's determination at this point?
This 1.7 million people march that took place yesterday in Hong Kong actually sent out two very strong messages. Number one, that the people in Hong Kong are still in strong support of the ongoing movement, despite the police violence and also violence from gangsters over the past few weeks. Number two, that the people are determined to maintain peace in the demonstrations, provided that Hong Kong police did not intervene. And that was the case that was exemplified yesterday, because the police didn't do anything, and therefore the march actually ended in peace.
Ended peacefully, as you say, and the numbers were not deterred by anything, certainly not deterred by the weather, as there was a downpour taking place, not deterred by warnings from Beijing itself. But are you at all worried? Because at this point, of course, there are members of the People's Liberation Army within Hong Kong itself, but along the borders, Beijing is amassing more troops. Are you at all worried about that?
Well, definitely, both Hong Kong people as well as the international community are concerned about what is going to happen next, given the fact that the Chinese Communist Party has rallied a lot more troops and also military trucks and tanks to the border of Hong Kong in Shenzhen. However, there's not yet sign that the Communist Party is ready to send army to crack down on the movement yet, because we all know that if ever they do so, the international community will strongly condemn and impose sanctions on China, which is a big price for them. And but in the meantime, we have seen numerous evidences showing that riot police, secret police from mainland China have been sent to Hong Kong to be integrated with the Hong Kong police. Some of them even disguise themselves as protesters, dressed up in the black gears, and they also trigger violent acts at certain locations in order to smear the protesters. And therefore, we need to keep an eye on this. And at the same time, if we also need to call upon Canada as well as international community to send a very strong message to Beijing that they should refrain from sending army to Hong Kong. Otherwise, they will have to pay a big price.
You know, there were, and I don't have to tell you this, pro-democracy rallies across the country this weekend, including the one that you organized in Toronto. But as you organized those pro-democracy rallies, we also have to point out that there were pro-China demonstrators at many of those rallies as well. Many of those pro-China demonstrators saying that what is happening in Hong Kong is actually disrupting the security and the peace of the region. What do you say to those critics? What do you say to those pro-China demonstrators that we've seen even here in Canada?
Well, actually, I see the counter-protest staged by the pro-China camp to be a very well-orchestrated global strategy by the Chinese Communist Party to control what is said about China in foreign countries. They try to manipulate international media coverage about the Hong Kong movement. They disrupt Canadian organizations like ours who want to express our opinion about Hong Kong. And they fan up the nationalistic sentiment of Chinese students in Canada via its United Front organizations, as well as via social media such as WeChat. I have seen screenshots of WeChat messages which were very violent. Some of them even show two guns, meaning posing threat to attack us with weapons. So I think this we should show zero tolerance to this kind of arrogant act that will jeopardize our freedom of expression. We should show zero tolerance to it. And if ever this kind of act is proven to be backed up by a foreign force, we should turn it into an election issue.
Turn it into an election issue, although, you know, there are those that worry that at the end of the day, it is Beijing that holds all the cards, really all the tanks in this case. And at the end of the day, this protest is going to end without anything really changing in Hong Kong. Are you at all concerned about that?
Well, I think, you know, China definitely is trying to impose threat, you know, to both Hong Kong and also around the world. Because all these years, the Communist Party has been ruling China by means of violence, lies, and also fear. But we should also understand that their economy is really on, you know, it's really dropping. The GDP is really dropping very significantly. And they do have to think twice before they take any violent acts against Hong Kong. And then as far as Canada is concerned, we have more than 300,000 Canadians working and living in Hong Kong. Therefore, we owe a moral obligation to, you know, stop China from cracking down on the movement in Hong Kong, because that will also jeopardize the safety of our Canadians there.
Gloria Fung, I want to thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
And Ms. Fung is the president of the Canada-Hong Kong Link. She joins us in Toronto. Stay with us.